Yeah, the bike rides. Imagine like
Make a post on Facebook that will be live on YouTube. Share it with YouTube.
got it. I'll do that right.
I'll put in Facebook or YouTube. Not sure.
There we go. Oh, you're good.
Great.
Unmute the mic.
Well, when you walk away and start.
Stream's already started.
Great.
Well, the stream has started.
We are started.
Well, I guess-
We are live.
I guess you can't pinch that off once it starts.
No.
It's not easy to stop. All right, everybody, welcome to the 034 Motorsport live chat. This week we're doing things a little differently because Nate's on vacation, and so we're only we dropped Facebook because there's a lot of IT magic to connect Facebook. So we're just on Instagram and YouTube. Hopefully you've made your way over here, and then, of course, Nick is standing in for Nate.
I'm not just a shorter Nate.
Yeah.
No. Can't tune.
No, you can't.
No, I can't.
Not even close. No one really can. So anyways, as always, I'm Javad Shadzi. This is Nick Mercadante. I'm the CEO of the company. Nick is our marketing manager. And we're here to answer all your... Oh, gosh.
Gotcha.
We're here to answer all your 034 Motorsport related product questions, as well as anything you'd like to know about the company, our history, opinions, experience, anything like that. Happy to talk about. And
Give us your outrageous ideas behind how cars work.
then we're also happy to always chime in on controversial automotive topics, general automotive, anything you have a question about how something works. Happy to talk about that. Nothing here is rehearsed or prepared, so it's all off the cuff, and so far so good. So put your questions into the browser of your using, and then we will go from there. And
Apparently getting a lot of echo here.
really,
How that's possible.
why would we have echo?
That's a great question.
Is this like a phone audio?
No, we're going through
This is the only mic, right?
All right. I just turned it down. We'll see if that
There should be no echo from one mic. There's no speaker in here.
No, not making sense. How we doing? We still have echo, guys? In all caps.
Oof, that's really annoying.
Echo is only on YouTube.
That's interesting.
Is it more than one person?
Let's see. How are we doing now, guys? On YouTube? Any echo?
Any echoing?
Just say echo.
Echo.
Still?
Yes.
That's incredible.
Yes. I mean, if you're on YouTube and it's annoying you, feel free to switch over to Instagram. I don't know what else. I mean, is there a setting that could address that?
No. It should be.
Maybe change the setting back on the mic, the lower knob.
This just controls the directivity of the mic. It doesn't make the mic reproduce the sounds inside of itself. You know, it's like
Right.
the echo is the initial signal, then it comes back through a speaker or something like that. So it must be something with YouTube.
Well, that's less than ideal.
Yeah.
Sounds like a concert hall. Great.
Well, that's not necessarily bad. Should we sing?
If you think I can't tune, I certainly cannot sing. But we got slightly better now.
We're not in an echoey room. How about now?
How about now?
Now? No?
Maybe. Should I just start playing it on my laptop here and then really get echo going?
The feedback that creates echo.
I think
Yeah,
what we got.
go to Instagram, which is, I'm sure if you're on YouTube, you have Instagram, if it's a problem. And let's get the questions going. Since we have some questions coming in, I wanted to talk about a topic I saw this weekend that was posted online, where someone, and I don't know the details, I don't know what car it was or what, but some customer I don't even know if this Volkswagen Audi, but they went out and got 4 different aftermarket intakes. And they put I believe it was a VAG product or something that runs the same type of ECUs as a VAG product. And they went and got 4 aftermarket intakes, and they went to a dyno, and they dynoed all 4 intakes back to back on a stock tune, stock ECU calibration. And all 4 intakes produced the same exact power as the stock intake. And so this was a big expose piece, and it was meant to let everybody know that aftermarket intakes don't make more power than the stock intake. And I believe this started getting a lot of traction, and there was some spreading sentiment that aftermarket companies who make intakes are ripping people off. I don't know if our intake was a part of this test. I don't know the details of the test, but I do know it was on a torque request ECU car. So I think since then, there's been some pushback as to the validity of this test, and this is simply what I wanted to talk about. We've talked about this before on the live, that the Volkswagen Audi ECUs, whether they're Siemens or Bosch, are torque request ECUs. This means that the main output variable that the ECU is calibrated or operating to is a preset amount of torque under varying conditions. So the Audi factory engineers program the ECU not to inject a certain amount of fuel or a certain amount of timing. Of course, the ECU ends up injecting a certain amount of fuel and a certain amount of timing. But the boost, the timing, the fuel, everything that the ECU does to operate the engine is targeting a specific torque number. And that's at varying load levels and RPM and throttle pedal levels. So when the main input for that is the throttle pedal. When you give it 25% throttle, the ECU says, oh, we're at 3,000 RPM and the drivers are pressing 25% throttle. So that means we produce X amount of torque. And that's built into the ECU program. So what happens is you could put the world's best flowing, highest flowing intake on a stock engine with a stock calibration, and let's say this intake is so free flowing that the turbo actually produces 3 more pounds of boost. Well, if that happens, the ECU will actually lower boost and modify timing and fuel to bring the power back to the factory torque request setting. So what we do as aftermarket ECU calibration tuners is we open up those torque request variables so that if the stock intake is limiting power, if you put a higher flowing intake that could make another 10 horsepower, we open up the ECU tuning parameters so that additional 10 horsepower can be realized from the additional flow. The ECU will simply accept the additional airflow and will adjust timing, fuel, and boost to benefit from that additional flow. That's not the case with a factory ECU, not with a factory calibration. So just warning anybody, if you go out and buy an aftermarket intake and you put it on a stock ECU calibration tune, this intake could make, let's say, a lot of our intakes will make like 20 horsepower on our 20 additional horsepower on a stage 1 tune. But if you do that on a stock tune, you will not realize that 20 horsepower because the ECU will actually pull the power back. And it can do that through lowering boost, it can do that through timing, and it can also just shut the throttle and limit the airflow that can go into the engine. So I wanted to put that out there. And this is a challenge for us and any other tuner. When you see a tuner that posts that our intake makes 15 more horsepower, well, on what tune? Because it's not on the factory tune. Inherently, the factory tune will limit the power. So that's our challenge when we advertise our power with our intakes. We can talk about the static flow increase. So if our intake flows 45% more, CFM, we can talk about that. But that additional 45% won't matter on the stock tune. Again, the stock ECU will just shut the throttle and limit the flow. So what we have to do is we have to advertise our intake power numbers in the context of a tune. The intake in this case is not the power adder, it's the tune. The tune gives the ECU the capability to produce more power, and then at that point you can install the intake and expect a certain amount of power increase. any good tune on the market should allow the intake to realize its full potential. If aftermarket calibration still has limited torque request values, then it will limit the power that's possible. But in our case, we open those way up so that additional power can be produced, okay? If anyone has any questions about that or follow-ups, let me know. We can talk about it more. But that's the gist of it. So I don't know what happened with this post and this expose. I hope it was thoroughly debunked, and I believe it has been. But yeah, that's just not an accurate test at all. All right. Someone's saying, I noticed lots of questions coming in. Thank you. I noticed on Facebook someone was running the TTE810 on your TTE7 tune. Is this confirmed safe? No, not confirmed safe. I'm not surprised that they were able to do it, but our tune has not been, optimized or calibrated for the 810, and so we do not recommend doing that. But I mean, people have been running JB4s stacked on Stage 1 tunes and all kinds of big turbo stuff for a while, and here we are. So we are working on 810. And hope to release something soon. So yeah, stay tuned for that. The turbos are starting to ship too now. We just shipped out a bunch of TTEs last week for people who had ordered them. So if you placed an order, a month and a half ago, you got a turbo shipped out. For anyone too that's looking for TTE720s for the 2.9T, we do have 2 of those in stock, ready to ship. 18-inch wheels for the B9. We're considering it in the future for flow form. We're not sure. The 19s fit really nice on B9s with plenty of sidewall. So yeah. Will your rear 2-piece upgrade brake kit work on B9.5 SQ5? Yes, as Nick confirmed.
Absolutely.
The front and rear.
It can work. Our rear kits work on the rear. The front kits work on the front. B9 and B9.5 SQ5 and S4 SQ5.
That'd be weird if the fronts only worked on the back.
That would be a little concerning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would not be happy with that.
We talk about data logging for B9 every week. It's something we're working on. Nate's not here, so he can't speak to any current updates. Same with advanced launch control type stuff. Those questions keep coming up. But we should be back live next week with Nate.
Sorry.
How come the B9 has front and rear sway bar upgrade, but the B8 only had the rear? Well, the B9 we have both. We have just a rear upgrade, and then we have the front and rear. And so years ago, when we first started doing sway bars, we tested rear bars and front bars. And at the time, we felt that the car handled the best, was fastest around corners with the stock front sway bar. Making the front sway bar thicker and bigger helped reduce the body roll more, but it didn't make the car actually give the car the handling dynamic that we were going for, which is more towards rear oversteer bias. So for years we've only had the rear bar for the B8. By the time we did the B9, we did the rear bar, and then we did the front and rear bar set for people that were mostly concerned with driving under the limits of traction and who were looking just for a nice low body roll responsive steer. So we have actually gone back and we are working on a front bar for the B8. We're optimizing it to pair nicely with the rear one. It will increase oversteer. It will not be as bad as the factory, but it will increase oversteer. So if you've been running just the rear bar and you put our front bar on, the first thing you'll notice is you have less body roll, but the car will have some of the push back that's disappeared from just the rear bar upgrade.
Right.
Remember, we've been in business for almost 20 years, and there's stuff that we did 15 years ago that we don't do anymore. Like we haven't done in years, and we're always learning and evolving and evaluating. So I think sometimes our fear is, people are like, aha, you did something differently 8 years ago, and now you're doing it differently, so you've been wrong for 8 years. Like, no, we're evolving and modifying the way we do things. We still offer rear bars by themselves, but we've we have been getting feedback from people that they would like a front bar setup, and for a lot of people, simply flatter cornering is more important than getting more oversteer. So we made the adjustments, and Nick's seen the feedback out there too.
Yeah, we obviously want to serve whatever you guys are looking for. We have our idea of what we feel is the best, and we keep that involved in anything that we develop and make. However, if the community really does speak out looking for something, we're going to put our spin and best take on it.
Like when people said we need balls to hang off our rear bumper, we made balls.
We came in.
Okay. I mean, and they're in stock, ready to ship.
They are. Yeah.
I don't know. Are they on sale?
They're not on sale. They're not on sale.
I guess we have limited
2 sets.
These are limited inventory items, so we don't want to sell out too fast.
Custom order.
No, they're in stock.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, we got balls on the shelf. Yeah,
Looks like you got nuts on the table there too.
we got some decent nuts. That's right. For mainly street use, would you suggest the softer settings on the rear sway bar for the B9 RS5 Sportback?
Those cars are so heavy and they roll so much as it is.
It has a lot less, or almost nothing to do with the fact that you're driving on the street or a track. So the different settings increase the spring stiffness of the bar, or actually the spring stiffness of the bar doesn't change, but functionally it does, because the bar either has more or less leverage on the suspension arm. So the only reason you would go from soft to stiff or vice versa, go on the stiff setting if you're looking for more oversteer. So this is, you go into a corner and you turn the steering wheel, and the rear turns with the front. Or if that makes you uncomfortable, or you feel like that's dangerous, or that's not the type of handling dynamic you're looking for, then go to the softer setting. And if you're looking for something in between, you can actually go stiff soft from one side to the other. So that gives you, basically 3 types of settings. Now, if you're on track, typically, when you're driving on the street, you're trying to follow the laws and not drive too crazy, so you don't want to be sliding the car around. Mm-hmm. If you like to slide the car around, I do it all the time when I'm in Mexico, then probably the stiff settings where you're going to want to be, whether you're on the street or track. But I don't, like I said, if you're on a street and you want to drive slower, you just drive slower. The handling dynamic's still going to be what you want it to be. So. But yeah, to reiterate, none of those settings are for street and track, and actually we don't really differentiate much between the street and track in any of our products, which is why we always talk about, and we test all of our products on the street and track. You can take a bone stock RS5 and put all of our parts on it and build a wonderful track car with all these products, and still have a great street car. And with our springs and suspension components, our $350 springs, are you going to be that much worse off than a $6,000 racing coilover suspension? No. On track, you're not going to be a lot slower than that. So our products are designed to be optimized for both, and they're both roads, they're both streets. There's more restrictions on the street; you really can't go as fast. But anything you do on the track, you could do on the street. With the type of products we're making.
Right. The adjustability is there to suit your driver preference. Some drivers are faster with an understeer bias, and some drivers are faster with an oversteer bias. It's your personal preference, and we give those options so you can make those decisions rather than being set in one style.
Yep. Let's see. Any plans to offer tunes for C8 RS6 and RS7? Definitely something we want to do. Not any short-term plans. It could be like a next year type of thing. Those are pretty small markets, and you're talking about hundreds of cars versus tens of thousands of cars. So for us, we have a responsibility to make most of the financial opportunity that we have. We're going to go after those bigger markets just like anyone else would. And then as the opportunity permits, we'll go down to those lower volume markets. This is always a good question. I think we've had this one before. With hindsight, are there any projects decided against but you wish you had pursued or started sooner? Definitely many, many products I wish we'd done sooner. The B8 Super Duper throttle body, B8 intake, which we were working on for years. I think just about every product we've ever released, I wish we had done sooner. But you know, you do the most with the opportunity you can. I don't know, is there anything? Careful with your answer here, but is there anything since you've been here that you think we shouldn't have done or that was regretful? You think I'd agree with it?
No, I don't think there's anything we shouldn't have done. Maybe I've been less than happy to deal with some of the customers in those groups, but
well,
none of the
part
products,
of it, though, right?
None of the products I feel like have sat there and said we shouldn't have done this.
I mean, I think the last time we talked about this was like. We did a 07K turbo kit, and I think we sold like 10 of them, and it just never took off. And then it was like a $6,000 turbo kit, and it turns out everyone was looking for like a $1,500 turbo kit, which you literally cannot do unless you just do eBay crap. So, you know, we wasted some time and money there. But the thing is, everything we do, we learn from it. And so there was a lot of tuning and calibration that we did. For that application that really got us into kind of like the ME7 type tuning at that time, which we weren't really doing. And we also manufactured some really cool parts for that. We did some really nice cast stainless steel exhaust manifolds, which put us into, you know, some new casting suppliers and things like, you know, engineering techniques that we hadn't done before. So we always, you know, I'm not a very regretful person. There's almost nothing that I could look back on in my life and say that I regret it, because I make the most of everything, even terrible, horrible situations. That's kind of my life philosophy is life's not perfect, shit's gonna get screwed up, but if you can make the best of it and actually turn it into a positive, then it's actually not such a bad thing. I mean, even you know, years ago I had an accountant steal like $400,000 from me over 4 years, and as horrible as that experience was, I don't know if I would go back and do things differently, because I learned so much from that experience. Would I have learned those things on my own without that happening? I don't know, but it happened, and what I did is I came out of that, one, learning how to get someone prosecuted and thrown in jail, which was very valuable. And then, you know, I learned how to do accounting best practices. I learned about GAAP accounting. I learned about checks and balances and accounting and processes. I learned that you should never let one person, you know, do both sides of a transaction, the debit or the credit. I became an expert in how to build a secured accounting department. That's made me a lot more money than $400,000 since, you know, made the company a lot more money than $400,000 since then. And you know, shitty things happen to you. It's just part of life. It's just, what can you do without? How can you come out of the opportunity? The phoenix rising from the ashes. Like, how can you make yourself better by taking a terrible situation and making it a part of your growth and learning?
Right. And I think, you know, to follow up on the original question, most of the products that I would say, or someone could say maybe you regret doing it, I think we took and said maybe it didn't work on initial release, but we did some revision or some edit or some adaptation to make the best out of it. You know, when we first dropped the ZTF wheel, it was a little outside of the price point that folks wanted to work in, so we rescaled that product line and made it work better for the consumers, and now we sell, I think, 5 or 6 different versions of ZTF, so it's a pretty good rate.
That's a good performing product.
Yeah, you can turn good out of any bad situation. If you give up right at the beginning, okay, well, then you're never going to see that success from it, but we push through.
Yeah. There's this other remarkable thing that happens when you fail, is you now know what would happen if you did it. You know, this is one of the biggest issues with making decisions in life is, well, if I do this, what will happen? Or if I do this, what will happen? And a lot of times people, you know, make up in their minds that option A will result in this. And that's almost never true. You know, your initial impression of what's going to happen is almost never true. So once you do it and you make a huge mistake, you know, you now know. Right? So the products that we've made that weren't that great, it's slightly regretful, but now we know, and we don't invest any more time and energy in that. So we've moved on, and now we go forward with the knowledge that these are the products that do actually sell, because we tried these other ones and they didn't. Wait, who's saying this? Cool story, bro. Back to the car show.
That's definitely an Instagram comment.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, that.
Okay. Well, listen, bro. This is my show, and I can talk about whatever the fuck I want. So if you don't want to watch it, you don't have to. Take a hike. All we do is talk about car shit on this thing. Will you be making two-piece rotors for the B8 SQ5?
Those are like a 375 front?
We don't currently do that?
No, it's specifically SQ5 for B8.5 has a different front caliper and rotor size than the Q5 3-liter and S4 and stuff like that.
We do have normal Q5.
We do have normal Q5 brakes and S4 and S5 B8.
Well, let's look into it. I like having a nice complete line of brake rotors, and they all sell.
Yeah, they're a good product.
Yeah. Just for anyone who's watching this too, we don't talk about car stuff the whole time. I might spend 5 minutes talking about life shit, frankly, since everyone has a life. And I've always gotten good feedback on it as well.
We're just cars. This company.
Yes. And, being good at cars helps if you're good at life. You are making a Stage 3 stock downpipe tune, but do not recommend Stage 2 with stock downpipe for B9 3.0 T. Can you explain that logic? No, that's not true. Well, when have we not recommended it?
No, we don't recommend Stage 2 to be run on stock downpipe. Stage 2 for B9 3-liter is for an upgraded downpipe. So Stage 2 is Stage 2.
It's a fallacy.
Right.
Like, Stage 2 is with aftermarket downpipe.
Right.
I don't know. It's like saying, we don't recommend rare steaks with well done. I don't know. It makes no sense. This is EPL confusion logic. Stage 2 means high flow cat / race cat. That's what it means. So you cannot run a stock cat with Stage 2 because that's Stage 1.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Stage 1 is maximum performance with the stock downpipe installed. Stage 2 is maximum performance with an upgraded downpipe installed. There is no Stage 2 stock downpipe situation. That's Stage 1.
So the logic is Stage 1 is Stage 1 and Stage 2 is Stage 2. And it's dictated by whether you're running a cat or not.
And Stage 3 is a new turbocharger, which can have an upgraded and stock version.
Stage 3 denotes what turbo you're running. It has nothing to do with the cat.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the logic gets a little confusing, but this nomenclature is pretty much industry standard, and once you learn it, it makes sense.
How does Stage 1 take advantage of bolt-ons? How does the car know? So we've talked about this in the past, that Stage 1 will accommodate and compensate for it.
So the ECU is running your engine and monitoring every parameter. Okay. Now, these engines do not have a mass airflow sensor, which would measure the amount of air coming into the engine. However, mass airflow is modeled inside the ECU. And so this is basically like algebra, and you have 3 variables and one of them you solve for. And so if the ECU knows what the air-fuel ratio is, if it knows what the air temperature is, if it knows what the engine temperature is, if it knows what the boost pressure is, if it knows all these variables, then it can solve for airflow. And so what happens is if you put a higher flowing intake, like we were talking about earlier, the modeling in the ECU will show that there's more air coming into the engine. So as a result, the ECU will inject more fuel and the engine will produce more power. Thanks to our tuning, which opens up the torque request variables, the throttle body will stay 100% open the whole time. Okay, instead of shutting and closing. The throttle body will just be open at the maximum opening level, and additional air will flow into the engine. And then as that air comes into the engine, the ECU will respond with all the various tuning parameters. It'll control the boost level, it'll control ignition timing, and fuel. But fuel is going to be the main thing that changes. With each unit of air, you need a certain ratio unit of fuel. And if that air amount increases, then the fuel amount increases as well.
Right. And then with the intercooler, that's obviously looking at the temperature of the air itself. At stock intercooler levels, your air temperature is pretty regularly going to be in the 50 degrees Celsius, which is pretty high. And the ECU knows what to do with boost, timing, and fuel at that air temperature. When you install an upgraded intercooler, your charger temps come down, maybe 30 degrees C, depending on where you live. Then the ECU knows, okay, now that I have colder charger temps, I can increase timing, I can add fuel, I can add boost to see fit to increase performance. It makes the decision on what to do in that moment, because it's a smart ECU and we let it do that. But it takes advantage of those bolt-ons being installed. You don't need to tell it, it has to install. We model that all from the beginning when we're making the maps.
Yeah. And someday, there will be less and less sensors, as time progresses, as the modeling gets better. For example, the ECU models, some of these ECUs have turbo speed sensors, but the ECU can model turbo speed. It knows, if it knows what the boost pressure is and the engine RPM and all these other variables, it can very accurately model or assume or calculate. It's really not an assumption, it's a very precise calculation, what the turbo speed is. The catalytic converter temperature is modeled. So the ECU knows, it's simple, it's not simple, but it's basic chemistry and physics that all the combustion activity is going through the cat. Knowing all the physical properties of the catalytic converter, the ECU can very precisely calculate what the temperature of the core is based on the amount of air and fuel that have been combusted and are flowing through it. So the ECUs are incredibly complex. These ECUs have thousands and thousands of maps. And, it's even more than that. In some cases, tens of thousands of maps that calculate and model all these variables. So for us, tuning and calibrating these ECUs just gets to be more and more work over the years. Used to be you'd just go in, there was a fuel map, a timing map, an idle map, a boost control map. There was like 12 maps, and you would just adjust those. But now it's called a mega squirt or whatever. Anyone can. But these new ECUs, they're just incredibly complex, and that's why these engines run so smoothly. It's funny the stuff people these days complain about, like the idle's like brr, 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 and people complain about it. It used to be idle was like brum, 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 just on a normal factory car. So these cars run perfectly. They start when they're cold. So it's all the result of these incredibly complex ECUs. Any news on the universal surge tank and the DAZA? Yes, we are finalizing them now. We should be releasing them soon. I don't have a release date, but we are very close to release. So thank you for your patience. This is one of these things I regret. I wish we'd released sooner. We started talking about the surge tank on this format, I think in March 2020, and it's with COVID and these surge tank products, it's not just one thing that we machine from billet. There's billet components. There's these beautiful stainless steel hard lines that we had made. There's fuel lines and wiring harnesses. It gets pretty complicated. There's brackets. So we're talking lots of different suppliers to pull this bomb together, but it will be ready soon. I'm seeing over 220 oil temps after 1 or 2 pulls. Is that normal? Yes. That's so we talk about this all the time. Your oil temperature from the factories is designed to be around 220 degrees. Are we talking Fahrenheit or Celsius?
I'm going to say Fahrenheit.
Yeah. Simply because water boils at 212 degrees. So oil temp has to be above the boiling temperature, so any water in the oil can evaporate quickly from the oil. You don't want oil in your crankcase. So 220 is the normal operating temperature. For synthetic oils, I would say once you start getting over 350 to 400 consistently, then that would be abnormal. But I would say anything from 200 to high 200s is the normal operating temperature for these engines, and in the healthy normal operating temperature.
We were at Thunderhill on Friday at 105 degree ambient air temps, and our RS5 was sitting around 275. The S3 was at 285 for oil temps.
Yeah.
The new synthetic oil is incredible in its lubricity, even at high temperatures. It's not like oil 10 years ago. It's very, very good.
A lot of these ideas or conventional wisdom around oil is from the 70s, or before, basically, let's say before the 1980s. When I was a kid, there was organic dyno oil. There was no such thing as synthetic oil. Maybe there was an F1 or something. I don't know. Synthetic oil started getting popular in the 90s, and it was even then pretty esoteric. Now it's everything on synthetic oil. But yeah, in the 70s, if you were running 300 degrees oil temps, your oil would start coking. It would start burning, and you get like charcoal or carbon inside your engine. Just simply a limitation of this naturally occurring organic substance. With synthetics, that's changed completely. So these oils, some of these oils are suitable for over 400 or 500 degrees. They don't burn, coke. They can operate within that temperature envelope. So we talk about this all the time, though. I think people stress too much about oil temps. It's really not an issue on these cars. I mean, we're not seeing that. Our sway bar kits for the SQ5 shipping out already. First off, thank you for the orders, everybody. We've gotten tons of orders, and it's really great to see the enthusiasm in the SQ5 market. We will keep making products for you guys. Nice job, Nick.
Keeping me here.
We have sway bars here, and we have everything. We are short on one component, and then there's a lot of assembly time with these. So our goal is to start shipping these out early next week. You should see tracking numbers by mid to late next week. It's not helped by 4th of July as well. So, but yeah, they'll be shipping out very soon. Thank you for the orders again. It's good if you've already placed an order, because we are starting to get low on stock, and hopefully we don't. We have another shipment coming in. Hopefully that will keep us in stock, but there is a chance we'll run out. So it's a good idea that you placed your order. Will you be offering an S34 P34 intake for the B9 SQ5? Well, I don't know if we have plans for that yet.
Nothing is confirmed. We're still looking into options there.
We're looking into options. The issue is the X34 is beautiful and wonderful, but the price came out high. So if you think you'd be interested in an S34, we won't be doing a P34, I don't think.
Right.
We would consider doing an S34. If you think you'd be interested in that, let us know. The price would be, like half.
Yeah, just about.
The X34. It would still be carbon, but it would be a shroud. It just doesn't. It's not as complete of a product. It's more of a functional product. It still looks really nice, but the cost is substantially lower because it's not an entire box.
For those unfamiliar, our X34s are our full carbon fiber intake kits that can either have a partially enclosed or fully enclosed box. Sometimes even an open lid, but still full carbon fiber. Our P34s are the plastic versions of that, injection molded plastic. Same performance, just different construction, obviously. And then we have the S34 that we introduced last year that is more of a carbon shield or shroud with a silicone tube and a large filter on an open element style intake.
What kind of miles per gallon should I be getting on your 207 pulley? Also have our ultracharger and ported supercharger. The same as factory, basically. I mean, we don't want. Yeah, I mean, miles per gallon. Okay, so if you're just cruising under light load conditions, it's going to be the same as factory. I mean, some customers report slightly better. We don't go out and advertise that, but. It stands to reason that if you're reducing restrictions in the intake and allowing the engine to breathe, then it will become more efficient and you could increase. When you're floored up to factory boost levels, it's again going to be the same. Where things get worse for miles per gallon is when you are floored in the region of the power band that's higher than factory. So for every horsepower, it takes a certain amount of fuel to make that horsepower. So if you double the horsepower of your engine, then you're going to consume substantially more fuel when you're floored or when you're at that power level. But I still wouldn't say that the miles per gallon of the engine is worse or that the efficiency is worse. It's just, it's making more power, you're using more fuel, but it's at the same level of efficiency as the factory engine.
Now, if you're running on an ethanol blend or E40 or full E5, that will certainly have reduced MPG just due to the nature of ethanol needing 30% more fuel. So don't try to compare E40 MPG to stock. That's not the same fuel.
Yeah, the point is there's nothing inherent about our tuning that gets worse mileage. Certainly, I think most people think about mileage, they think about getting on the freeway and cruising, and those numbers would not really be different.
Right.
Now there are calibrations out there. I'm not saying specifically which ones. There are calibrations that are not tuned properly, and they get way worse mileage. Years ago, we had a tune that customers reported worse mileage, and there was an issue with it that we fixed. Again, that was like 10 years ago, but yeah, nothing to worry about. But if you drive harder, you're going to use more fuel, no question about it. Always love 034 content. 034 Motorsport is the best. Thank you very much for that.
Take that every day.
Mm-hmm. MQB needs corn jizz. Well, we're working on that. Mm-hmm. We like corn jizz around here. When can we expect B9 S4 engine? Oh, sorry, things are moving around. When can we expect stage? Someone's asking about TurboSystems Stage 2 and 3 tuning. No dates yet. It's something we're looking into. The next turbo that we're doing is the 810, and we'll be focusing on that for a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, our plan is always to support the turbos that you guys want. It does take a little bit of time, so just because we don't have an update this week doesn't mean that it's all of a sudden non-existent. We're working on the best thing possible.
Mk8 GTI tune timeline, we'd love to give one. Currently that ECU is not tunable, however there is some activity out there that's encouraging. Typically how these ECU platforms work is once one company is able, there's a number of companies in the world who work at unlocking these ECUs, and once that happens, it's thankfully available to every tuner calibrator out there. So there's some good signs that this could be coming up soon. Not making any promises, but there is. We're now counting down the days, but we just don't know how many days we're counting down. Right. But every day we are getting closer to being able to do it, and hopefully it's sooner than later. That's going to be the next big tuning platform, and we will jump right on that.
Absolutely.
I see some nuts and studs on the table. Yep. So we just released these really gorgeous motorsport style bullnose stud and nut kits. And so we offer the studs in 3 lengths, 55, 65, and 75 millimeters. So 55 would be more or less, stock application, and then up to 75 depending on spacer configuration you're running, or if you're racing or you're on the track, having nice long studs is nice because you can just slide the wheels on. You can slide the wheels on with any of these, but track cars typically will run longer studs. There's just
Switching between different wheels, things like that.
Yeah, and maybe you want to run a 2-inch spacer, and you could. You just don't want to. You don't want to mess around with that. And then we offer nuts in 2 styles: cone seat and the R13 ball seat. R13 ball seat would be any factory OEM wheel or any aftermarket wheel that has the same. And then a lot like our ZTF wheels. And then many aftermarket wheels use a conical seat. All of these parts are grade 10.9 high tensile steel. So it's an upgrade over factory metallurgy, and have, unlike some studs on the market that are like zinc plated or like oxide, these are an actual coating that will prevent rust. These should hold up nicely for a long time and not rust. They won't get the kind of surface rust that the black oxide studs will. And then, you know, the main benefit is the ease of putting wheels on your car. There's no more alignment issues with the rotor moving or trying to get the wheel on and stick a nut in there. You just slide out the studs. The bull nose perfectly centers the nut, so you don't have to worry about stripping the threads. You literally cannot cross thread these. And so you just stick your nut in your gun and just like NASCAR, basically. And that's where this stud style was innovated and originated. They offer a nice big shoulder, so you can cinch these down. We recommend installing them with some blue Loctite in the hub so that they don't move or get loose. They thread nicely, beautifully. This is kind of we've been selling studs and nuts for years, which are perfectly good studs and nuts. But this is the style that we all have wanted to do for a while, and we finally got around to getting it done. So these are on sale live on the website currently, and we'll be releasing more. You know, we'll do the full release maybe tomorrow or the next day.
Yeah, SQ5 guys, they work great. Use it online.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah. OEM RS7 RS3 spark plugs. Some are reporting the electrodes are failing when used in EA888 Gen 3 4-cylinder applications. I don't know much about this.
There's so much misinformation surrounding whether or not those plugs are an upgrade or downgrade, and same thing, changing coil packs on those cars.
None of it's
There's so many
probably help it necessary.
Right. There's so many variables involved here that it's tough to really put on.
Generally, I will say, you know, these are factory OEM grade spark plugs. I don't know who makes them, but
I think they're GK.
I mean, we can assume that it's a high quality, good quality product that's not just falling apart because it's faulty. So my initial reaction, not knowing anything about supposed issues, this would be my educated opinion, is that spark plug electrodes don't just fail or fall out unless there's something wrong with the tuning. So EGTs are typically way too high. There's detonation. Detonation is like a concussive blast inside the combustion chamber, so it can damage and destroy everything inside the combustion chamber, including the spark plugs, which are pretty sensitive, you know, components. They make really tiny little sparks. You know, they're not the most durable thing inside the engine, although they're very durable. In a properly running engine, they could last 100,000 miles. So, you know, we haven't. I'm not aware of any issues with our tuning related to this. Now, there are some really shitty aftermarket plugs out there, like you could buy at Pep Boys or CREC or online or whatever, that have a bunch of fuckery around the electrodes and fancy things to try to, you know, it's basically snake oil type stuff. Those can and will fail. I do not recommend running those type of cheesy snake oil type spark. I mean, years ago when I was a kid, there was Split Fire came out, the Split Fire spark plug, and it was a normal electrode, but the end of the electrode was split into two prongs, and there was this idea that the spark would ionize or short circuit to both tabs, giving you a much bigger, hotter spark. Well, that's just not how electricity works. The electricity will ionize to one side or the other, and they were no different than a regular spark plug. But man, all my friends in high school were buying them and claiming that they made so much more power, and they had all kinds of ridiculous claims too. And then the electrodes would fall out because it was, you know, cheap aftermarket plug or whatever. So, honestly, we've had great luck with the I'm totally blanking. The spark plugs, the brisk spark plugs that we sell lots of them, like thousands a month. no issues. And, and typically we just say, factory spark plugs work fine, just as well.
Yeah.
Our O2 sensors needed on test pipe tunes. We do not support really test pipe tunes, but our stage 2 tunes can work on test pipes, certainly for racing type applications. And yes, all of our stage 2 tunes do require a rear O2 sensor. Because that's part of the tuning calibration, and it's actually, we're actually getting input from that. Do not put any spacers. No stage 2 tunes need spacers of any kind.
Well, no tune we sell in general should use spacers. It will throw off.
Yeah, I mean, you'd never use them in anything on stage 2.
People don't.
Yeah. Well, it depends what EPL does.
Or I should say invent them.
Kind of confusion
Yeah.
they created. With summer temperatures coming, what are some tips to keep the car cool and things to monitor as we drive our car to higher outside temps? I don't know if there's much that needs to be monitored. I would say if you're running our products and our tuning, there's really not much you can do to hurt or damage the car. The ECU and the calibration are going to modify the engine running parameters based on outside temperature. I would say if you don't have an intercooler, and you want to drive the car hard, you should consider getting an intercooler. If you don't, you'll just see massive power reductions the hotter it is. And again, this is just it's physics. An engine cannot produce much power when it's ingesting really hot air. Detonation becomes a big issue. But no, I think with modern cars, you can drive them hard when it's hot. If the car goes a limb mode or something, be mindful of that and try to get to the bottom of it. But it really should.
Yeah. We do most of the legwork for you guys on this, or really all the legwork for you guys in software development, so that you don't really need to have this concern. As temperatures rise, the ECU will scale back various things to ensure that it's running safely and cleanly. That's
So what was the temp on Friday at Thunderdome?
It was 105 degrees.
So, we just got back from a track day on Friday where we were driving all of our
Flat out.
product development vehicles, flat out as hard as we can, in 105 degree ambient temperatures, which many of you probably will never see, hopefully.
Yeah.
And that's part of our development and testing and validation. We don't want our customers to have to be concerned or worried about driving their car, no matter what elevation, what temperature, if it's hot or cold or what.
And we've done this testing with stock cooling systems as well to ensure that everything runs properly. The absolute worst case scenario,
We do, yeah.
we put the SQ5 on track in a 95 degree day with stock cooling. Thing weighs 4,500 pounds. If you're worried about heat and all those things, certainly upgrading an intercooler helps, but there's nothing to be concerned.
Yeah, nothing's dangerous.
Yeah.
And I don't even know what you could do other than just not driving it very hard. There's really not much you can do to,
You could do like old Subarus, spray water on your intercooler.
It doesn't work. I've done it. I spent years fucking with that shit. Back in the old days when cars weren't nearly as good. Yeah. Audis used to come with tiny little radiators that were off to the side, and they would all overheat, and it used to be a big problem. Is you literally couldn't drive your Audi on the hot days at the track. You could get a couple laps in it and overheat.
My 90 overheated in Portland on a 70 degree day.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the ones. With,
Yeah.
Because of the 5-cylinder, it took all the room up front, so they stuck the radiator on the side as kind of an afterthought. But once the B5s hit with a proper front-mounted radiator, you started seeing track days where we would be at Thunderhill all day long. There was just A4s and S4s lapping all day long, and those cars would get so hot. But they had a modern, ME7 type ECU, and the ECU did a good job of dealing with the heat. It could bring down boost temperatures. Certainly things would get hot, and those cars were not nearly as reliable as the new ones. So like a B9 S4 or RS5, whole nother level of reliability, and they have so much more cooling system capacity than they used to.
Right.
If you had to choose, would you rather have a B8.5 S4 engine and a B9 S4 chassis, or a B9 S4 engine and a B8.5 chassis?
I think I'd rather just have a B8.5 as a B8.5 and a B9 as a B9.
But that's not your choice.
No.
You have to choose.
I love the B9 interior. It is so user-friendly and comfortable, especially for any amount of street use. I think it's a good implementation of tech. I own a B9, so I'm biased. And you get massage seats. I'm sorry, like that's the pinnacle of automotive comfort.
Because it depends what your goal is. If you're just looking for a really nice, fast car to drive on the street, then the B9 is going to be the way to go.
Yeah.
This is an interesting question because the B9 3.0T can produce a lot more power.
But the B8.5 is an incredible power delivery and supercharger. The way that comes on.
It is a nice power. It's nice power delivery, and then the B9 chassis is just nicer.
Right.
So,
yeah.
I'd probably go because I could get 550, 600 horsepower out of the supercharged 3.0T. I'd probably go that route and have the nicer chassis. The good news is, like Nick said, you don't have to make that choice. The B9 S4 exists, complete.
Right.
You just get in. You don't even have to turn the key. You just push a button.
That's true. Yeah.
And the B8.5 is a great car as is as well. So,
Kind of following on the question we got asked earlier about, safety checking the cars when asked, how have you done any long distance endurance drives on your tuned cars? The answer is absolutely.
yeah.
I mean, there's
I
various.
don't see that question.
We're at the top. Oh, where'd it go? Your phone needs to refresh. That's odd. But no, we've taken these cars extremely long distance. I can speak personally for my own SQ5. I've towed a 4,500 pound setup over 2,000 miles in 2 days with altitude and elevation changes on tuned software. No problem. For TTRS and other cars, taken to SEMA, super high elevation through Death Valley and super hot temperatures. We drive these cars everywhere in their form to ensure that they're reliable.
Yeah, I mean, all I drive are company cars. So if I'm going on a trip to Southern California, I'll take a company car. Every year I drive, and this year I didn't, but I drive company cars to SEMA. So I make, it's like a 12-hour drive. I can do it in like 7, off freeways and stuff like that. And I we use the cars hard. Our goal is always to break it before you do. It's relatively cheap for us to break a car compared to dealing with the fallout of having you guys do it. One of our competitors recently made a huge mistake and blew up how many engines?
I think it was confirmed 3, but there was a couple dozen affected cars.
Minimum 3 engines in one day. And figure each engine's probably like 2 or 3, but I mean each one's probably $10,000-$15,000
added labor
to repair or make right, plus the damage to the reputation, which you can't even calculate that. So it's better to do it. It's better if we do it, and that's why we have so many cars. That's why so many of us drive them. That's why that's all I drive. I mean, and I really don't care. I'll break it. Right, it's fine.
I'll never forget the first week I worked at 034, a little over 4 years ago last week, was a drag day where Nate hot lapped the 8S TTRS 15 times in 100-degree weather. Every time it was very hot. We were with a few other shops and folks, and they would do a pass. They'd come in, they'd put ice all over the engine, they'd spray everything down, they'd have all these fans and run them for 30 minutes to cool things down, and it was a private rental, just went around and around.
But we were there to test reliability, not to get one fast run.
And
after having ice all over your engine for 2 hours.
Right. And it ran consistent 10-1s that day. It was incredible.
One after the other, like 15 in a row.
Oh, right, and we did that with the B8 S4 as well.
We had the AC on the entire time, 15 runs.
The filming day with the B8 S4 for the product video was, launched it at 5,000 RPM this time.
We really do try to break it up.
Yeah.
When can we expect the 034 high pressure fuel pump for B9? That's being manufactured currently. It's probably going to be like September. This was another regret. It's just that's not an easy product to make and to work with. There's just a handful of companies in the world that can even make a pump piston that's toleranced to 1/10,000 of an inch with all these special aerospace coatings. So it's going to be more like September. And someone's asking, when can we expect stage 1+ and 2+ tuning for B9 high pressure fuel pump files?
I believe we're
Those
right.
are coming.
The calibrations are completed. I do believe that there's some final work left to get them boarded and ready for everyone.
Are we limited on time now because Facebook isn't part of
I
it?
don't think so.
Yeah.
I think we can keep going.
Yeah.
Instagram's usually the limit.
Yeah, but Instagram's let us go recently. They haven't.
We'll find out.
They keep running. Well, if Instagram drops away,
Did the echoing thing get better?
No.
No.
We're on Echo 2.
Any plans to open up a shop in SoCal? No plans. No. You know, we have a number of good dealers down there. Although we opened, so we have a ETF Auto, which stands for 034. Here in Fremont, we have since 2008.
Mm-hmm.
And then last year, we opened up ZTF Auto 2 in San Jose, Santa Clara, which is about 20 minutes south of here. And we do have plans to expand into more. So I think that our goal is to open up a new shop every year or two. Once we get the new one up and running and profitable, then we will invest in the new location. So Southern California is a good idea, and it's been discussed. It's harder for us because it's really nice to have to be so hands-on. The last thing we want to do is open up a shop in SoCal and have it be mismanaged and misrepresent us. So no plans currently. MP is down there. We're connected to MP. So it's an interesting thought, but nothing firm in place. Are we still good?
Yeah, we're doing well. I think you need to refresh. It's not showing us the videos.
I just need to
Exit out.
I've never had this happen. It must be frozen up.
A lot of people say they never had it happen, but usually that is a lot. Well, I can fill it with another one in the meantime. At what point will a low pressure fuel pump upgrade be necessary for the B9 3-liter? When we reach that point, we've been doing our development and haven't seen the need for that just yet on our TTE710 setups.
Oh, low pressure fuel pump. Yeah. I mean,
there's some worthwhile addition in terms of anti-surge systems for super hard launches, but that has nothing to do with low pressure fuel supply and things of that nature.
Yeah, and I know there's talk about it. Was it
our favorite person?
Our favorite person, whose name shall remain.
Yeah.
It's the Wi-Fi. I turned the Wi-Fi off and it's refreshed.
Neat.
But yeah, I mean, it's not needed yet. It will be at some point, but it's crazy how high capacity these B9 fuel systems are.
Yeah.
Any plans for G20 BMW support?
So that's the new 340 line?
And I mean, no, not specifically right this moment, but in the future we may. We have to see how well we're doing at BMW. So we're rolling out a lot of new BMW products. And CREC tuning.
Nate provided a road update last week regarding that.
What did he say?
Want to go check? We can now remotely flash those. However, it's not live on the server yet, so we have the capability. We're working on it, and when we have something to announce on it, we'll let you know.
Yeah. Looks like we're out of questions, and we're over an hour now, so
we can follow this.
We'll get back to all the important work we do here.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, cheers, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.
She's hot.
The phone.
Yeah. Well, there was a question about Colette. What happened?
Oh, it was just, are we sad that her car is gone?
Yeah, what happened to the question?
I wasn't sure if we wanted to